Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me for another installment of All Hands on Tech Developer Stream with your host, David Neal. I am a reverent geek on most social media platforms, Twitter, Mastodon, Instagram, my website, reverentgeek.com. You can see it right up top. No, wait, we're not doing desktop. We're we're building a real-time web application trivia game using some technologies like Node.js, Fastify instead of Express. We're using Tailwind and Vue and Socket.io for doing real-time socket communications. If you've not been on one of these streams before, if this is your first time, you can grab the source code for the project on my GitHub repository. It's at github.com/reverentgeek/ahot-trivia-game. AHOT is All Hands on Tech, which is this channel from Pluralsight. And I am a developer advocate for Pluralsight. My job is to help you developers and folks in technology be more awesome. That is my mission in life, is to make folks more awesome. And if I can teach you something about technology, whether it be programming or computers or just using stuff, that brings me a lot of fulfillment, and I love being able to help folks and get things, unlock some things for folks. If you're joining, please send a message in the chat wherever you are. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, drop a note in the comments. Let me know where you're coming from and what you're interested in. Maybe will ask me any questions all the time. Throughout any of these sessions, if anything comes up that you have a question about, something that I don't explain all the way that you need clarification on, please let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. Nicole returns and says, hey, watching the Twitch stream so I can watch it again once I'm not sick. I hope you get feeling better soon, Nicole. Let's see. So last week, when I was doing the stream, we went through the process of adding Tailwind, right? No, we were in the process of adding Vue. That's what it was. We added Vue to the project so that we could start to build some components and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript encapsulated in components using Vue. And when I got to the end of the stream and getting ready to commit those changes into the project, I discovered that I had a merge conflict with Git. Oh boy. So turns out I had committed some changes to the project on a previous stream weeks ago on a different computer and did not realize it. So it turns out that we had worked on adding Vue and Tailwind on a previous stream, and I just forgot. So I did the work of merging those commits together and fixing a few things, and the source code is now correct. It's up to date to where we are today. So if you want to grab that Again, it's github.com/reverendgeek/ahot-trivia-game. JP, thanks for joining from San Francisco. You're interested in mobile app development and curious about using web development for mobile apps now that 5G makes it much faster. Yeah, so building hybrid mobile applications has been a thing now for quite some time. And you can absolutely build mobile apps using web technologies. There's some frameworks out there like Ionic. I know Progress had some things that they had created at one time. Those are the ones that are Cordova, I think, was some of the original stuff. Sencha, and that's all that's coming top to mind right now. But if you want to package a web-based application into a mobile app, you can certainly do that. As far as like 5G goes, I don't know that it makes that experience. It certainly makes the experience better if what you're doing is fetching data to display in a mobile application. Yeah, faster network speed is going to help there. But if you're delivering a mobile application, whether it's built with native like Java, Android, or iOS, Swift, any of those kind of native technologies versus a web technology, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference because most smartphones today are pretty awesome at with when you're deploying an application, all the assets and everything are loaded onto the device. So the only thing that network speed affects is the data that's being transmitted from the mobile device to like your services. So unless you're building a game where you need that ultra high frame rate, and even then, JavaScript, HTML, CSS can be a great solution for building applications that run on mobile. Good question. All right, so I'm going to switch over to my screen here. Maybe put I'll turn off the banner at the bottom, and I'll put me down in the corner so you can still see that I'm here. Maybe as we're working through some code, I could be thinking, and I'm still here. All right. So one of the things that I like to do at the start of any session that where I'm coding is I like to check to see that my tools are up to date. So I use MVM as my Node my Node installation manager. So MVM, if I do MVM ls, that lists the versions of Node.js that I currently have installed. So I have 16.19, 18.13, and 19.4. So version 18 is the current long-term support version of Node. It is the production ready version of Node. And 19 is the next version of Node that's currently being developed. So it's kind of like the beta version of Node. They also call that like the unstable version because a lot of changes can be made before it becomes eventually will become version 20. So 18 is what I've been using to build this project. And what a lot of times what I'll do is I'll check using ls remote 18 and verify, am I running the latest version of version 18? And I am. It's version 18.13 as of this video, this stream today. So that's good. the next thing I'll check is to see if any of my npm, my node packages are out of date. And there's a handful here that have been bumped, some minor and some patches. So there's no major versions to upgrade to. So I think it's usually pretty safe to update these. So I'll run npm update. And run it npm outdated again, just to make sure that everything got updated correctly. So that looks good. So now if we run git status, the only thing that's been updated is the package.json, the package lock file. So just bumping those dependencies. All right. So I'll launch. I already had it open, but I'll launch it anyway, just to show you that if you install the command line extensions for Visual Studio Code, which is my editor of choice, I think it's awesome, especially for web applications, JavaScript, TypeScript, and many other languages and frameworks. So that's a quick tip, is if you see Command Shift P brings up the command palette, or Control Shift P if you're on Windows, I believe. And you can type in command, and as you start to type, it filters the list of commands, and there at the top is install code in the command in your path, and that's going to add whether you're using terminal on Mac or Linux, or you're using the command line, the command prompt for Windows. It'll install Visual Studio Code in your path so that you can run a command like code space period, and it will launch Visual Studio Code in the current folder. So the README for the project, if you go and download it or view the source code on GitHub, it explains, that's the wrong file. It explains the what the project is, what the dependencies are. You need to have Node.js installed, and I recommend you use NVM. So you clone it gives you the setup instructions in the project. So you want to clone or download the zip file for the source code, run npm install to install all the dependencies, and then create your own local environment file for the environment settings that you may want to have. So in the sample, there is port 3000 host 0.0.0. So that just means it's running the web server on local host using port 3000. And like, for example, well, I mistyped it, 300. So 3000, I'm not running the application at the moment. So let's do that. I can do that with npm run dev. That is going to launch the current web application using NodeMon, which is a node process monitor, which is great for local development. As you make changes to the project, your JavaScript, HTML, CSS, whatever, it is looking for file changes and will automatically restart the application, so that you don't have to continuously launch and close and relaunch the application. So if I reload here now, oh, I'm on port 8080. There is the the current version of the game in all of its glory. We haven't gotten to the point yet of doing the creating styles and cute characters and all that kind of good stuff. But we're going to start taking some of those bites today. And that includes, I'm going to spend some time today with Tailwind CSS. That is the framework we're using to style the application. And one of the first things I want to show you how to do with Tailwind is how to add a custom font to your web application so that it looks, whatever kind of brand help quite a bit. All right. So first step on that, I'm going to stop the web app that's currently running. So we got our command prompt back. And I could do this here in the terminal, or I can also bring up, if you press Control backtick or tilde, the key on your keyboard that has like the backtick mark just under the escape key, typically, that will bring up your terminal inside of Visual Studio Code, and I can run those same commands and run stuff directly here in the terminal. So I'm going to do that for now, and so we can stay in one place. So one of the things I'm going to install is a font. So there's let me do this. If you go to npm, wow, can't type. You go to npmjs.com and search for font source. Font source is gives you, they're like the open source fonts that are available. You may have seen some of these maybe in Google Apps or Google Fonts. These are fonts that you can use in your web applications or whatever applications you're building with NPM or Node.js. And there's some really good ones, Roboto, Poppins, Montserrat. So this is actually the font that I want to use for the application. And there's whenever you use NPM, the package manager website, you can look at like the README and jump from the README to the GitHub repository. There's a wealth of information here. I want to show you a couple of other tips, but this is the command to install the font as a dependency in the project. So I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio Code and run that command, npm install font source Montserrat /Montserrat. So it's going to download all the font files, and also includes some CSS modules that you can import into your project. So if we were to dig down into the node modules folder, normally you just like, you don't want to look there. It gets kind of ugly, right? All the stuff that you install as dependencies just becomes this giant folder full of stuff. But under node modules, there is a @font source, and in the Montserrat folder, we see files like 100, 200, 300.css. These are all the font weights. So 100 is like a very light weight. In terms of fonts, it's like how whether it's a normal or a bold or a light. So 100 through 900 is kind of the standard for font weights. And then there's some other packages. There's the Cyrillic, Latin, and variable. There's Vietnamese. So depending on the font that you're downloading or installing in your project, there could be lots of variations on what files are available. We're going to be interested in these, just the normal things. So these, for instance, the 100.css, it is declaring a font face with a font family, the style, the weight, and the source. And the source points to a particular path. It looks at files, Montserrat, normal, all. So there's a bunch of these in here. There's that are defined. So we want to be able to import these fonts into the web application. There's a question that came up on LinkedIn. Hello, thanks for the stream. Will you speak about WebSockets? Yes. I don't know if we'll talk about WebSockets today, but if you want to check out the source code for the project, right now we do have we're using Fastify, and we're using the Fastify Socket IO plugin, and it is configured. When I run the application, there's a game server that sends data over sockets. It also, logs some information. It sends the current state to the client, and the client also has some data that it can send back over sockets. So we haven't coded a whole lot around sockets, but it is working. I've demonstrated that it is working. If we get to it today, it'll be after we get the fonts installed, and then I'll create a form inside of Vue to send data over WebSockets back to the server, so that we can start to build that kind of client-server interactions with the game using WebSockets. So please stay tuned. We're going to finish looking at fonts for now. Okay. So we've got the font installed. And the first thing I want to do is go into the source folder for the client. Right now we have a game.css file, and this is kind of the starting point for our Tailwind CSS styles. So we're declaring the base components and utilities, and we're saying the kind of the baseline font size for HTML is 20 pixels. I want to create in this client folder a new file called fonts.css. And here we're going to import. So if we go back to the example that they have in the README, there's this import font source. We can copy and paste that here. But I do know that we may want to use other font sizes or font weights than just the default 400, which is a normal font weight. So I know from looking at the Node modules folder that the other ones that we want, I will need to import them as like so. So I'm going to, there's 200, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'll just quickly update these to do that. So in here, inside of the game.css, which is like the what is used in the as the starting point for CSS, I need to import the URL fonts.css. So now, if what I didn't cover in the last session that was covered previously in another stream is setting up Tailwind includes adding a build step in your package JSON file. So I've got a script here labeled build, and it runs the Tailwind executable, command line executable, to take the game.css file that's currently in source/client/game.css and essentially compile it and build a file that's in the public folder game.css. So let me close node modules here. There's a public folder. You see that there's a game CSS here. That's the source that has this information. And the game.css that gets built and put inside the public folder is all of the Tailwind information that's pulled from those sources and compiled and put into one spot. Right now, it just has the base, resets and style sheets for Tailwind. And plus the one thing that we've added additional, which is the font size for HTML. So if we come down here and I run npm run, what did I call it? Build, npm run build, it executes Tailwind, and there is an error. Let me run it in the other window. Okay. So post CSS import unknown word. It's not liking the imports. Okay, so fonts. It's expecting I'm not sure why it's complaining, because I'm pretty sure this is the exact same code that I've used before. According to import. Well, obviously it's got expected CSS. Still has the same issue. I wonder. I am. Well, uh, let's try this. So there's a Tailwind config.css, and I know in order to add the fonts so that it's something that um, this may be the issue. I need to define in Tailwind config that we're going to use a different font family. So I'm going to declare a default theme and bring that in from Tailwind CSS. And under theme, we're going to extend the font family sans, and we're going to specify Montserrat and then splat the rest of the font family sans. And what that'll do is it's telling Tailwind to take what is normal for the the sans font family theme, and just put Montserrat in front of the rest of the font declarations so that it gets the priority. And this will get rendered in that game CSS that goes in the public folder with the correct list of all the font family names. I don't know if that'll fix this problem or not. Import. I don't remember doing anything else besides this. Oh, it's the @ import command. I must have missed that in the no, they don't have it here. I copied and pasted that one. That's the problem. So now if we run npm run build with just that one reference, it builds and it's done in 100. We don't get any more errors now. Man, I was sweating there. I'm like, what is going wrong? This is typical of building web applications, right? Or any type of coding. It's like you run into something like, why isn't this working? Missing an @ sign. @ import is like a Tailwind command. All right, so let's look at, this is the CSS that's generated. And now we see up at the top those font faces from that from the declarations from it's importing that CSS that and getting that into the final game CSS file. All right. So let's go back here and change this to 100. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, I want to show you something. So if we run npm dev, npm run dev, and launch the application, here's the interface again, and it doesn't look like things have changed. Let's bring up the developer tools, and you'll see here failed to load resource 40. It's a 404. So the server doesn't, it was looking for 700 normal, 400 normal, and it can't find those files to serve. So we need to also update the web server so that it knows how to serve those font files from the Node modules folder. So we did something similar to that with this static file plugin. So we're saying, any kind of static file, serve it from the public folder, or if specifically we're saying it's a view file, we're serving view from the Node modules folder as if it were part of, it's just like a pointer that's showing one, so if a request comes in to localhost / view / view.js or whatever the name of that file is, it knows to go and look in the Node modules view distribution folder. So we need to do this similar thing with our fonts. So this is serve Vue.js static files. We're going to serve fonts. So our font path is Node modules font source. Let's see, font source Montserrat files is the actual folder that has the font files in them. So we're going to say prefix is files. And again, decorate replies is false. We need to use our font path. So when I save that, it restarted the web server. And if I come here and we pay close attention, we should see the font actually change. So I'll refresh. The font changed. There's no more 404 errors. We're getting the style that we expect. Cool. All right, let's see if this works. If I click on start a new game, it hides that first page and now shows me the next form or the next page or next step in the game process. So this is where we're going to start building out our view form and using that to collect information to submit to send that data over WebSockets back to the server for the client to start or join a game. All right, so right now we just have join and enter your name to join. It doesn't actually show or do anything. Now that we got the fonts in the right spot, let me see if there's anything else we need to do. That's it. I've covered everything on the fonts. So got the following files updated. Let's add all that and commit it. And push that to the GitHub repository. So now if you want to, check out that code yourself, what we changed, you can do that in the GitHub repository. And we'll start on the next section. Let's close node modules. And what we did was when we introduced Vue to the project, we took the existing HTML file we had. They had like the chunks of the UI as of right now, which is basically just two things, the home and the join, and we refactored that into individual Vue components named home.js and join.js. So home emits an event called join, and it has a join method that is the click event for the button that's in this component. And all it's doing is when a new game is started, it emits that join event, and the client that is hosting the home and the join and all the other components for the game, it's listening for that event. And when that event happens, it's calling the method show join, which is just changing the current state of the application, and which causes the home component to be hidden and the join component to be viewed. So we're using the vif directive on these components to show and hide the right one depending on the current state of the game. So we have a join right now that all it has is HTML. It doesn't have anything interesting beyond that. So let's take a look at what we can do to set up this game to get things going. So I know we're going to need an input for like someone to enter their name, like their gamer tag or whatever they want to call themselves, their avatar. So let's say input. We'll give it an ID of player name, and we'll say autocomplete is off. Placeholder, which is like the text that shows up inside the text box is kind of like a hint. We'll just say gamer name. And this field is required. So when I let's restart the server here and refresh the page, click start a new game. And now we got gamer name here. Resets everything, kind of normalizes all the HTML. So it's like you've got to pretty much style everything exactly the way that you want it to be displayed. So let's add some let's take a look at give me just a second here. Okay, I'm going to add a class on here, and let's say let's add some padding. So padding is P. There's values of 1 through whatever. So some padding, add a border. And the cool thing about using Visual Studio Code, and I've got a Tailwind installed for Visual Studio Code that gives me a lot of IntelliSense on what's available. So there's border spacing, there's border sizes. You can specify line widths, border types like solid and dashed and dotted. And then there's all these border colors. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, all the stuff that you can do. You can be like really specific. But let's say Indigo 700. And just with those two things alone, if we refresh, oh, I need to specify like a border type. So let's say it's rounded. Full. I think that'll do it. No? Border. Oh, I have to specify the border size. That should, no? That's bizarre. Let me check here. npm run build. Refresh. There it is. Okay. Not sure why the styles weren't coming across. I mean, it should. Let me bring up the terminal again here. I'm just going to put it off to the side so that I can have Visual Studio Code. If I make a change to this file, like P3 becomes P4, and I save it, it should rebuild my project, and it's not doing that. So I think I have an issue with the NodeMon. So NodeMon is watching source. I also need it to watch public components. Let me double check something. Yeah. So I have to specify each watch. So now it's going to watch both the source and the public folders. If I stop and restart here, and now put this off to the side. If I make a change to join, we see that the server rebuilds and restarts. So that's why we weren't seeing any changes to the front end view of the code, or at least not the ones we were expecting, because the CSS wasn't getting rebuilt every time we made a change to that component. So now that's fixed. All right. Let's add a button to that the person playing the game can click on to join the game. And this will be button class equals something. We'll figure that out in just a moment. When they click on the button, we want to call a method. Right now, we'll just call it join. And we'll say next on here. So in the class, let's say that it's also rounded full. Also has some padding. Let's increase the boldness of the font. And we may want to change the background color. Let's see. BG. Let's also give it an indigo color, maybe 300. So right now we just have the template. We also need some methods. Defined. And we need our join method. So when the person clicks on the join, we get the we're going to tell, we're not going to send, like inside this component that we're working on right now, it doesn't have any awareness of WebSockets. That's the responsibility of the client.js that is hosting all of these components. So it's just going to tell the client, I just received this data from the person joining, and do something with it, kind of thing. So I'm going to emit that data to the parent, just like we did with the home. And that's let's see, we do that with this dot emit. It's $emit. And let's say this is register player, and it is this dot player name. Let me see if I have that right. I kind of think, oh, that's right. So for the binding in Vue, we have to specify what, can't just go on ID or name property of the component. We need to tell Vue what property to of our data to bind on. And so we use the vModel directive to set that to player name. And we also need a corresponding data that sets up a default player name of an empty string. And we're almost there. So we also need to specify that this component emits the following events, and this is register player. Okay. So now we go back to the client here. That's not the client. Close these other ones. So on our join, we need to specify that I think we called it register player is the event. Yep. Let's just copy and paste that to make sure. So when that event is emitted, we need to tell you to say what is the component or what's the method we're going to execute when that event is emitted. So register player. Well, for lack of better ideas, I'm just going to call it the same exact thing. And up here, we'll add register player as our method name. So when that happens, it should receive some data from the from that event, and it should be passed as an argument. So register player should be sending us player name. And let's just, for sake of making sure this is working correctly, let's log that to the console. Everything has been restarting as we uh, make those changes and save them. So start new game. Hey y'all, click next, and we got hey y'all in the console. So the join is happening. So now what we want to do with that is we want to send that back to the server over WebSocket saying, this player is now ready to start the game. Here is their name for their avatar. And we can do that with our socket. So we'll say, first of all, we have a data here on the client itself. So we're going to say this dot player name equals player name. Now that player name that was submitted by the child becomes part of the data associated with the parent. And then we can say socket dot emit. So we're going to send a message back to the server, and we need to call this something like join game. And we're going to send some data to the server. We're going to send an object, and right now we only have one thing to send, and that is the player name. So I'm going to delete the console log here, and then on the server side, we need to set up something to handle when that data is received on the server. Let's see. So inside our connection here, we can set up some of those handlers for data that's being transmitted from the client to the server. I'm going to set those up near the top of what's happening here. And we can say socket.on, and we call this event join game. So let's copy and paste that here. So whenever the server receives a join game event, it's going to receive the player name and do something with that. for now, let's just console log player name. Now, in this case, console log is not the browser, but the server. The server is what's running here in the console. So instead of seeing the message, let's just be real clear about that. Let's say server received join game from player. All right. So over here, let's refresh the page here. Start a game. Let's just say my gamer tag is Reverent Geek. I hit next. And here in the console, server received join game from player Reverent Geek. So on the server side, we can start to add folks. So we can have like multiple windows, browser windows open to simulate multiple players joining a game. And every time a player joins the game, we can start to, keep track of all the individual players and their connections. And once we have like a threshold of, say, 4 players, we'll, start the game and go from there. So we've got a lot of things to discuss and to hash out around, maintaining the state of the game, keeping the clients notified of different states that the server is in. And, so next step will be when this next button is clicked and the server receives that registration, the server can confirm or acknowledge that they have joined the game. Then we'll start showing other states on the client to say, you've now joined, waiting for the game to start. Then when the server decides that the game is ready to begin, it'll send that notification down to the client with data like, here are the trivia questions. And then, each of the clients can then start to run the game themselves. So we got a lot of stuff to figure out. Let's go back to our README here. What we did today, we've allowed the player to enter a name and join the game. And technically, the first player can start we haven't done any of that kind of logic yet, but we'll get there. We've got to actually have a game, come up with some trivia questions, come up with a countdown timer for when the game is starting, having a game timer for the game itself. So we've got a lot of things left, logic wise to figure out. And we have a lot of styling to do to make this thing look cool. Well, Patrick, thanks for joining. Wondering what's going on now. Yeah, so we're just wrapping up the session for today. I normally do these in about 1 hour chunks. So we're at the end of this session. I'm going to commit the things we have right now to source code. Adds a join game form to client and sends message to server. Push that. Whoops. Git push. And now that source code is available in the GitHub repository. So if you want to go grab what we've done so far, that is in github.com/reverentgeek pluralsight.com/ahot-trivia-game. All right, are there any other questions? Running a little bit over what I usually try to stick to, but take a few minutes. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments now, and be glad to answer those for you if I can. Regardless, thank you so much for joining me today. In case it wasn't clear or you joined afterwards, after the introductions, my name is David Neal. I am a Pluralsight Developer Advocate, and my job is to help you be more awesome. So if there's anything I can do to help you, I hope you learned some stuff today. We covered some Tailwind and a little bit of Vue, and we've got a whole lot more to go before we can say this is a real game. But I hope this has been entertaining and informative. Hope you learned something today. If you think of a question or anything after the stream is over, if you want to send that to me, as I mentioned before, I am Reverent Geek everywhere on social media, Twitter, Mastodon, Instagram, my website, reverentgeek.com. And I am david.neal@pluralsight.com. If you want to send me an email there, that's fine too. Thank you for joining, and I hope to see you again on another All Hands on Tech Live with your host, David Neal. Until next time. Goodbyes are awkward. I'll see you on the next stream.